floodgates.
1 second.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Courtney. And I believe the top of Dion's head. And Eve. Hi, Eve. Yay. Hi. Okay, everyone. Well, I'm just going to give people another minute or two to show up because we've got a pretty small group today, which is fine. You know, Tom was mentioning to me that some people have contacted him and said they'll be watching the meeting later on YouTube in the archive, which is great. An excellent meeting appropriate background as usual, Brody. So you've got a cormorant about to do a number on a fish.
Good work, Brody. That was good. I like it.
Very impressive. Okay, well, so welcome everybody. Greetings welcome to this meeting for Thursday, September 30th, 2021, Carpinteria Birdwatchers. We are going to talk about cormorants. And I will just, well, I'll jump in a second. Does anyone have any fun birding they wish to share? Anything they've been up to lately? We've got a pretty small, group so far tonight. So, I will be relatively lenient about just jumping in and speaking your mind. I've seen some of you out there in eBird.
Okay, I'll share a couple of things. Just that we've been enjoying participating and filling in some of those gaps that Mark's been emailing about. So we've been birding a few places that we've never birded before. So that's been pretty rewarding. Not a lot of action, pretty quiet for the most part, and that's probably why there are gaps. But it's been a neat experience.
Yeah, that is a neat project. So that's the, I'm going to go ahead and hit the admit all button since we have some more folks arriving. Yeah, this Hotspot Gaps project, right, that they've organized, and there's some information about it on the Santa Barbara Audubon Society website. So if you Google for that, if people are interested, you can find out more about it. But what they've basically done is identified some eBird hotspots that have gaps. Like if you look at the bar chart throughout the year for an individual hotspot, you can kind of see there are these gray columns representing weeks during which they don't have data. And so they're letting people go out and fill in that data. And that's great that you're doing that. That's really useful. Yeah, I filled in a few of those myself. It's kind of a, you got to decide when you choose where to go bird watching, am I going to go do the noble thing and fill in this gap, or am I going to chase after this exciting rarity that's at a place that, 100 bird watchers have been to? So yeah, but that's good you're filling it in. Keep up the good work. Okay, so anyone else want to share anything fun from the last month before we get started in earnest? Brody, do you have a hand up? Yeah.
I just forgot now. I'm sorry. I'll jump back in if I remember. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's the time of year when if you wait 5 minutes, there'll be fun, exciting bird news to share.
Yeah.
Again. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get rolling because I want to talk about cormorants. And because there's a little bit of top of the meeting information I want to share, but I went ahead and made some slides for it. So I'm going to go ahead and start my screen share. Oh, you remembered?
Yes, I do.
Okay, what's the story?
At my school, I've been seeing bluebirds, which I have never really seen anywhere really before. So I thought that was sort of fun. And just a lesser goldfinch hopping along the ground, which was sort of fun.
Bluebirds are amazing birds. I love seeing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's very cool. Well, I hope you're paying attention in class. You're not just like whipping out your binoculars and looking at the birds.
No, that's just during recess.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'll see if this works. Yeah. To do this, I think. Let's see if it works. Okay, so if I've done this correctly, you should be seeing my my window with my presentation in it. Let's see. My window is so small, I don't see the present button. There we go. Okay, so let's talk about birds. And I want to start off talking about these fun rarities. So back on September 18th, which was a Saturday, I went out birding and was excited to see both of these birds. The tropical kingbird at Ocean Beach Park was a bird that I just came upon. I wasn't expecting to see it there. That was fun. And then when I was out there birding at Ocean Beach Park, I checked the email alerts from the SBCO birding email list. And there was a discussion of a Canada warbler that had been seen at the Riviera Business Park. So I made that my stop on the way home, and there was the bird. I was able to see it, which was really cool. And it is, a thing with fall migration. We get these cool vagrants that don't normally occur here showing up. And then the next few days at the I call it the Log Me In complex, although I guess Log Me In isn't there anymore. It's this business park out in Western Goleta on Hollister. Has a lot of really good bird habitat in their extensive parking lot. Were a ton of rarities there. And this isn't even all the rarities that were there over those few days. And it was that situation where, there's some good birds there. So the really good birders all flock there to see if they can see them. And while they're there, they find more things. So you get the Patagonia picnic table effect. And you can look that up if you're not familiar with it. But it's basically this idea that, good birds tend to create more good birds because the birders go there and they find more things. So all these cool rarities were there at that complex. Some of them are still there. I think the ovenbird was seen today. No, not seen today. That's right. They looked for it, but did not see it, maybe. It was there yesterday. I know Courtney and Dion, one or both of you, saw the ovenbird at one point recently, I think.
No, we didn't see it.
But you tried for it.
We tried for it. We saw a bunch of the other stuff, but not the ovenbird.
Yeah, it's very shy. The word I've heard is that, you just want to sit quietly, which is not necessarily consistent with having a dozen birders lining the edge of that eucalyptus grove waiting to see the ovenbird come out. All right, then the other fun thing that's happening right now is we are at the peak. If you look at this graph from the Golden Gate Raptor Observatory, we are at the peak of the broad-winged hawk migration. So I've talked about it before in other meetings, but this is an eastern species where a smallish number of mostly juveniles each year go the wrong direction and end up flying, south along the Pacific coast. And they get funneled at the Marin headlands because they don't like flying over water. So they follow the land right to the north end of the Golden Gate Bridge there. And on that hill there, Hawk Hill, they do a hawk watch every fall. And they chart the occurrence of broad-winged hawks. And you can see this, basically, we are right here. We are right at the peak. And a couple of days, and then it takes the birds maybe a couple of days to get down here to Carpinteria as they continue. And a couple of days ago, when it was cloudy out, it was really overcast, there was this big push of migrating raptors. I was lucky enough to see a couple of broad-winged hawks that day. I got some distant views. I was kind of in the wrong spot, but some distant views of a big, circling kettle of birds that looked good for broad-winged in the photo, which would have been like a dozen or more of them. But it was very exciting for that. That was a good day. And they have been seen both the day before that and the day after that, so they could still be out there. So if you're interested in seeing a broad-winged hawk, this is a good time to see them. Let's see. Oh, and then some upcoming events. So not this weekend, but the weekend after is eBird's October Big Day on Saturday, October 9th. So you can participate in that if you want by putting in an eBird list on that day. Some of us participate every day, but if it's something you've been thinking about doing, like, oh, maybe I should put in an eBird list, that would be a great day to do it because you could be part of this big collective effort. Also, the Big Sit, which we've talked about before, is happening on that weekend. So either on October 9th or October 10th, if you want, you can go out and draw a 17-foot diameter circle, I think it is. I'm not sure. You have to go to the website, thebigsit.org, and then spend as much time as you are willing to in that circle and see how many species you could see, which is a fun way to, not to bird without running around a lot. It's very fun. And not to be outdone, we are having our Carpinteria Birdwatchers outing. We're going to meet at the Carpinteria Salt Marsh Nature Park on Saturday, October 9th. So usually we do that outing the Saturday after this meeting, but I'm going on the Island Packers Pelagic trip this Saturday, so I won't be available. So the following Saturday, October 9th, we will meet, and that'll just be along Ash Avenue, kind of towards the south end near the beach. We'll meet along there at the edge of the marsh, and we'll go bird watch in the marsh, which will be fun. That, I think, was the place we did our first ever Carpinteria Birdwatchers outing. So we'll go back there again. And I think that's it for for all that stuff. Okay, well, before I jump in and start talking about cormorants, does anybody have any final comments about non-cormorant things?
John, I have one more thing.
Yeah.
If you get a chance, check your junk email. We sent you an email with a question and a terrible photo of a weird bird that we saw that we couldn't identify. So just hoping you could take a look at the photo and give us your input.
I will absolutely look for that. And if you are willing, if you just resend it to me, that'll increase the chances that I see it.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
You know, there is a lot going on right now, and it is possible that I saw it and intended to respond, and then something drove it out of my mind. My actual job has been very busy lately, so it's like birds and job. It's like it's a lot to keep track of.
Imagine that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else? All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about cormorants. Let's give them a look. So cormorants are interesting. I was telling Tom before the meeting started that, you know, preparing for this meeting has forced me to really reassess my whole relationship with cormorants. Like, I think I'm guilty of kind of looking down on cormorants a little bit. Like they're kind of gawky and awkward, and I don't know, they're not really graceful, at least when they're standing around on land. I don't know. I maybe take them for granted, but it's been a lot of fun learning more about them in preparation for this meeting. And I think they are a very neat group of birds to talk about. So let's talk about them and talk specifically about cormorants in Santa Barbara County. So here is our eBird histogram. And you can see from this that we have 4 species. Although if we had had this class a few years ago, we would have only had 3 species because that Neotropic just got added recently, which we'll talk about later. But the 3 main species you can see in Santa Barbara County, you can see from the thickness of the green boxes, you know, how frequently they show up in eBird lists. And you can see that they occur throughout the year, pretty steadily throughout the year. Double-crested Cormorant is the most commonly reported. The Brandt's Cormorant is next most common, and then the Pelagic Cormorant. And then bringing up the rear, much less commonly reported, is the Neotropic Cormorant. So, I mean, one fun thing with cormorants is they're pretty easy birds to identify if you're willing to stop that cormorant. You know, if you're willing to just say, "Oh, there's a cormorant," you're good. You know, they're black. They have that kind of characteristic shape. We'll go ahead and start talking about one of them. So they look like this. And as I say, they're pretty distinctive. They're really hard. You can't really confuse them with anything else around here. I mean, I guess an anhinga, if you were back east or in the southeast, looks pretty similar to cormorants, but otherwise, that's pretty much them. And you frequently see them in this posture where they're kind of sunning themselves. So this bird has got its wings spread out, presumably to dry off the wings. I mean, they swim in the water and they dive underwater for fish. And a lot of times when they've been fishing and they come out, you'll see them spread their wings out like this to dry them off. Let's see. Not sure what else to tell you. They got webbed feet, which they use for swimming underwater. I don't know, they're cool birds. So this one is in fact a double-crested cormorant, our most common species. And so this was at the Carpinteria Saltmarsh Nature Park, and there's a decent chance we'll see one of these when we go there on October 9th. Pretty much in Santa Barbara County, if you see a cormorant inland at all, like not over the ocean or actually on the ocean, chances are it's going to be a double-crested cormorant. It is our inland cormorant species for the most part. Here is its range, and you can see it. You know, it's not really shown as being here year-round, but it is here year-round. Like this little purple year-round strip really basically does extend up as far as us. We have them all the time, and but you can see they winter inland in this area, they migrate through this yellow area, and then in the breeding season they're actually up here. So you find them on inland waterways a lot. And I think since this map was created, their breeding range has expanded some too. Like they have pushed north into some areas that aren't shown in purple on this map. Oh, and here's the zoomed in version that, again, if we zoom in on Southern California here, it's not really anatomically correct at this scale, but I think this little nubbin here is supposed to be Palos Verdes. And so we're sort of up in this area here. And, again, these days we do have breeding cormorants up in Santa Barbara County. So this purple, if they update this map, they'll extend that purple up there. Here are recent eBird reports of double-crested cormorant. And this is just, let's see, I did this, I think, in the first week of September. So this is basically in the month of August or the beginning of September. These are all the locations locally where double-crested cormorant has been reported. And you can see it has been reported a lot of places along the coast, but also a lot of places inland, right? This is Lake Cachuma. This is like a little ag pond, I guess, along the 33. Other places, you're going to see them at bodies of water. They eat fish and they hang out in the water, but they're okay with lakes. They will be inland. And you'll see them flying back and forth, overland a lot of times too. And again, in general, in Santa Barbara County, if you see a cormorant flying over land, it's probably a double-crested cormorant, because the other two regularly occurring species that we have are pretty strictly saltwater birds. But here you see a little cluster around Carpinteria. If you go birding at a hotspot around Carpinteria, excellent chance you'll see a double-crested cormorant. Here's a zoomed in shot of a double-crested cormorant, and I like this because it shows you the detail of their sort of head pattern. And if you can see a cormorant this close, the identification is pretty straightforward, because they have distinctive sort of colored skin, and the border of the colored skin, and the fact that there's this colored skin in the area in front of the eye, between the eye and the beak. All of these are really helpful for nailing down your species identification. But things to look for with a double-crested cormorant is this orange gular area. Gular, not sure how to pronounce it, G-U-L-A-R. But this bare skin here is the gular area. And in a double-crested cormorant, it's orange. It's kind of orange color. This, it's kind of like a right angle. You didn't know there was going to be geometry involved in this meeting. This kind of 90 degrees or maybe even greater, maybe a little bit of an obtuse angle at the edge of the gular patch behind the gape, behind the base of the mouth. That's an important identifier if you want to try and identify a neotropic cormorant, because they have a different angle there that we'll see later. But in a double-crested cormorant, pretty much a right angle, or maybe even a little bit more open than a right angle. And then this orange patch between the eye and the base of the bill, above the mouth. That again is a good characteristic to look for in a double-crested cormorant. In flight, they have a pronounced kink in the neck. And this is, again, very useful. So if you're looking at a cormorant in flight and you're not that close to it, where you can see that the details of that face structure, that head pattern, the overall shape is really going to be your guide. And so with the double-crested cormorant, it has a relatively thick neck. So, we'll see more examples of other cormorants later, but I don't know, it's a big beefy neck that it has there. And then it has this big kink at the base of the neck. And the other cormorant species we have around here also can have a bit of a kink there, but the double-crested cormorant is really a pronounced kink. And then the other thing that's kind of useful to look for is sort of the overall, well, the length of the tail. So the tail is relatively long, and the thick neck and the kind of kinked neck makes this part of the bird relatively short. And you put that together, and it kind of, the part behind the wings is just a little bit shorter than the part in front of the wings. Like it's almost evenly balanced. And that proportion is really useful to look at if you're trying to, figure out what kind of cormorant you're looking at, and it's in flight. And a lot of the time it's it's farther away, so you can't really see that details of what its skin on its face looks like. So that's a good thing. That proportion is a good thing to look for. So here is another cormorant, another double-crested cormorant in flight. And you can see it has pretty much those same proportions I was talking about: thick neck, long tail, kind of evenly balanced between the part in front of and behind the wing. This one has a lot of pale feathering on the neck and breast area, and that's because this is an immature bird. I don't actually know how long it takes them to get their fully dark adult plumage. I want to say a couple of years, maybe 3 years. I didn't actually check, so don't believe a word I say about this. It's just me guessing. But the lighter ones are young ones, and there's a lot of variability. So you can sometimes see a young cormorant that is pretty dark, or other times you see a young cormorant that's almost white in this area. It's really kind of dramatic. But again, look for your head pattern, the orange in front of the eye, the orange cooler patch, overall proportions, thick neck, kink in the neck, and you're good with double-crested cormorant. Okay, any questions about double-crested cormorants? I'm not, talking for however long this is going to be. Yeah, Brody, you got your hand up.
I was wondering, don't most double-crested cormorants have the crest? Because most of the ones that I've seen on here, I haven't really seen them. I'm just wondering.
That is a very good question, and I just realized that there is one more slide, and it shows their crest. So this is the double crest from which they get its name, and they don't always have it. This is a breeding plumage thing. So according to Sibley, that's March through May. And again, I think there is a fair amount of variability. This is one with a really good set of eye whiskers, or whatever these are called. Good
Yeah,
crest.
those things are crazy.
Yeah, so the cormorants in general in their breeding plumage have sort of get some distinctive kind of thing going on. With the double-crested cormorant, it's these tufts, and also the orange of the face, the gular patch gets brighter, gets like a brighter orange. The eye gets sort of this bright blue thing going on. It's kind of cool to see if you're up close.
Even out of the breeding season, when they don't have that, don't they usually just have like this little black crest on the side?
Yeah, they can have like,
That's very
little bits of feathers coming off. I mean, it's not what I would think of as a crest, like a Steller's jay or a blue jay, with a really distinct big triangle. No. But yeah, they've got little things coming off there.
Okay. And it's also sort of variable too, just depending on the bird. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's not something it's certainly not something I would look for to guide an identification. Like if I see it, it'd be, oh yeah, it's got these little tufts coming off. But anyway. But yeah, if you see it in its breeding plumage with those two things on either side of the head, that's a good indication you've got a double-crested cormorant.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, let's go on to cormorant number 2. And here it is. This is a photo taken from Tar Pits Park here in Carpinteria. And this is the Brandt's cormorant. One of those birds that if the bird names for birds people get their way will lose its eponym. There's a whole, I've talked about this before, there's a whole movement that I'm basically on board with, that I agree with, that says, we shouldn't use people's names on birds. And there's various reasons for that. Some of the people involved are kind of problematic. Brandt turns out not to be so problematic as far as I can tell. He was a German who moved to Russia and was a museum curator in Russia in the early 1800s or mid 1800s. And I don't believe he ever saw a Brandt's cormorant in real life, but he had specimens that were brought back from a Russian expedition to the west coast of the US. And so he described it, and so his name is on it. That is why it is Brandt's cormorant. But again, basically cormorant shaped. It's a pretty big black bird you associates with water, with a long kind of flexible neck. Proportions wise, you can see it's got a little bit shorter tail than a double-crested cormorant. I mean, it's a subtle difference, but if you look for it, you can notice it. Its neck is just a little thinner. It's not quite the beefy neck of the double-crested cormorant. And if you look here, its face pattern, its head pattern is very different, right? It's got a sort of a pale yellow patch at the base of the bill, but no orange, and no orange between the eye and the bill. Okay, so again, if you're this close to it, pretty easy to ID. Just look for that sort of pale yellow patch there. Here is its range, and you can see it is strictly an ocean bird, or a shoreline bird. It doesn't go inland at all. And it breeds along the west coast. Looks like in the wintertime, it extends its range a little bit to the south and to the north. They breed in Southern California. Here is, again, for the last few months, eBird sightings of Brandt's Cormorant. And it, at least on one level, looks a lot like the double-crested Cormorant, except you realize if you look close that all of these little points along the coast, they are right on the coast, right? None of these are hotspots that are inland at all, right? So again, if you're away from the ocean, it's a good bet you're not looking at a Brandt's Cormorant, which kind of simplifies things. But if you're at the ocean, you could have all three of our cormorants. So anyway, this is where they are seen. Here's the Brandt's Cormorant in flight. This one actually has a band on its leg, which is kind of interesting. So again, if you're this close, you can kind of see that head pattern, the yellow cooler patch and the lack of orange. You see the neck is straighter, a little bit of a kink, but significantly straighter than the double-crested Cormorant. And the neck is significantly thinner than the double-crested Cormorant. I mean, it's still a pretty beefy neck, at least in this individual bird, to my eye, but it is not as thick as the double-crested Cormorant. And proportion-wise, now this is kind of a subtle thing, and it's something I'm still working on, so take this with a grain of salt. But between the short tail and the straighter neck, I kind of get a sense that this bird is front heavy in flight. Like there's more of the bird in front of the wing than there is behind the wing. So it's a little bit more that way than with the double-crested Cormorant, which is closer to evenly balanced. So your mileage may vary on that, but that's something I've been looking at lately and trying to see if it's consistent. So I encourage you to think about that if you're watching cormorants fly by. But the straightness of the neck is a good indicator that it's a Brandt's Cormorant rather than a double-crested. And we often see Brandt's Cormorants flying by on the ocean in groups. Like you'll often see, 10 or 12 or even 20 of them, all flying as a group together, kind of low over the water a lot of times, that straight neck. If you see a group of cormorants flying over the ocean like that, it doesn't prove that they're Brandt's Cormorants. And often, even in a group like that, you might have a double-crested Cormorant or a Pelagic Cormorant mixed in with them. But at least around here, my sense is that big groups of cormorants that all look like the same kind of cormorant flying together over the ocean probably are likely to be Brandt's Cormorants. Here they are in their breeding plumage. So they get these little hairs on the sides. This is sort of their version of the tufts that the double-crested Cormorant has in breeding plumage. And then also these hairs, these long white hairs or feathers, I'm sure they are, not hairs, on the back. But then they get this bright blue gular patch in front of the yellow area, which is just really cool. And this photo doesn't even show it as brightly as some of them appear to have it. So if you can, if you're around a Brandt's Cormorant breeding colony, like some of the offshore islands around here, if you're on a pelagic trip during the right time of year, they'll bring you up close and you can see the Brandt's Cormorants breeding on the cliffs. And these bright blue throats are really, really impressive looking. A cool message from Holly Lohi in the chat about the green-tailed towhees are still prisoners over at Santa Cruz Island. So another good reason to go over there. You can see green-tailed towhees right now if you play your cards right. But let's keep talking about Brandt's Cormorants. No, let's not. Let's go on to Cormorant number 3. So here is our third of the 3 commonly occurring cormorants around here. This is the Pelagic Cormorant. And as you would guess from its name, it is found, like the Brandt's Cormorant, on the ocean. Not so much what I would think of as a pelagic species where they're found way out at sea, although they probably are way out at sea, but they're like other cormorants found along the coast, basically. Out over the ocean, but probably within sight of land or not much further. It has a longer tail than the Brandt's Cormorant. It has a thinner neck. It has a very thin beak. So if we back up and look at a Brandt's Cormorant, well, it's hard to tell in that shot. Again, these are subtle distinctions, but if you look for it, very thin little cormorant beak on the Pelagic Cormorant, very thin neck. It is somewhat smaller than the double-crested and the Brandt's Cormorants. Here is its range, pretty similar to the Brandt's Cormorant range. And here they show it. I think this purple must be the Northern Channel Islands. So not sure how well you can see it on your screen, but they do show them breeding out there, and they do, in fact, breed out there. Recent eBird sightings. So you can see not as frequently reported as the Brandt's Cormorant. There are fewer of them around, but they are out there. You have to look for them. Here's one swimming along, and this is, again, kind of a characteristic pelagic cormorant profile. It's got this thin neck and this kind of thin little beak and the long tail. You can kind of see all those features, even though it's, a lot of this bird is underwater and out of sight. In their breeding plumage, this is actually very helpful. They get these bright white hip patches, or at least the breeding adults do. So, as I said, February through May, according to Sibley, is when you'll see this. And it's very helpful, at least for me, to kind of calibrate my cormorants in flight identification skills. Because for those few months, if I see one with those white hip patches, I know, okay, that's a pelagic cormorant. So that's the shape of a pelagic cormorant in flight. Here's another view of it. Again, you can kind of see the longer tail. It's a little bit closer to the proportions, maybe, in terms of the balance front to back of the double-crested cormorant, not so much the front-heavy proportions of the Brandt's cormorant. But very thin neck, not much of a kink at all, little, thin beak. And because this is the right time of year, although it's January when this photo was taken, so it's a little before the February date that Sibley talks about, this one is getting its white hip patches. Here's a close-up view of one in its breeding plumage. And you can see the hip patches there. And also it gets some red area, really bright red skin at the base of the beak that it pretty much lacks in the non-breeding plumage. If we go back here to this view, you can see it doesn't really have any at all, in October when this photo was taken. But if you catch one in the breeding season, you see a little red there in the breeding adults. Alrighty, so that's it for the only 3 cormorants you can see in Santa Barbara County until May 31st, 2019, which is when the first county record, which is relatively recent, of this 4th bird appeared. And this is actually the bird that was seen, this is maybe a few weeks later. But this is the Neotropic Cormorant. And it's kind of, you can't really tell the scale from this photo, but it's basically a smaller version of a double-crested cormorant is how I think of it. It's sort of like if the double-crested cormorant is the full-size candy bar, this is the fun-sized candy bar. This is like the little candy bar you get at Halloween. Here is its normal range. And as you see, it has no business being in Santa Barbara County based on this normal range. And it actually extends south of here. I don't know how far south its range goes, but this map cuts off here. But it goes, I know, at least as far as Brazil, because the photo I have later is from Brazil. Here are recent eBird sightings of Neotropic Cormorant. It has been seen, if you're going to see a Neotropic Cormorant, you kind of need to go looking for it. So watch eBird, look for a report of it, and then go see if you can see that bird. It's a very chaseable bird, because it's a cormorant. It's kind of out there in the open. It's not like it's hiding in a bush and you lose track of it. This is Devereaux Slough, is where this hotspot is, and this is the Andre Clark Bird Refuge. And this may, in terms of these recent sightings, may be the same bird. Like I think it may have appeared at Andre Clark and then moved over to Devereaux. I'm not sure it's been seen at Andre Clark lately. I confess I have not been looking for this bird lately, so I don't really know if there's 2 of them right now or if there's just the one and it's moved around. To go back to this one that appeared in July 2019, here is a view. This was an immature bird. And again, in proportions wise, it's got a little bit longer tail than a double-crested cormorant, although you can't tell that in this photo. But the details of the face pattern are very important for distinguishing them. So it's not super obvious, but if you're looking for this cormorant and you're trying to separate it from all the double-crested cormorants that are around, look at this angle. So remember I was talking about how the double-crested cormorant, the angle at the base of the gate was a right angle, or maybe even a little more open than a right angle, more of an obtuse angle. The Neotropic cormorant's angle is an acute angle. It's less than 90 degrees, so it's pointier, right? So look for that. And that's a subtle thing to look for, but that's what you've got to look for. So hopefully you can, be fairly close to it, or have a spotting scope, or a good photo that you can magnify. And the other thing to look for, there's no orange between the eye and the base of the bill. There is no orange patch there. And for me, that's the most obvious giveaway. When I'm trying to find a Neotropic cormorant that I know is around, and I'm sifting through all the double-crested cormorants to try and find it, I look for that orange patch. And if I see that orange patch, I know it's a double-crested. It's not the Neotropic. So here is actually I know because I put May on here and I realized, oh, this was the day this bird was first reported. I think Nick Letheby found it. Nick Letheby finds most of the really amazing birds in Santa Barbara County because he's always out there finding birds. So this was the day it was found, and I hustled out there, and there was 4 or 5 bird watchers, and I go, Neotropic Cormorant still around? And they're like, yeah, there it is right there. So it was very easy. It's always fun when you're chasing a rarity and you roll up and everybody's looking at the same spot. It just really simplifies the whole process. So here you can see the size comparison is really helpful, that it was standing next to a double-crested cormorant. This bird clearly is too small to be a double-crested cormorant. Like with most birds, by the time they leave the nest, they're basically full size, right? You don't really have smaller versions of the double-crested cormorant roaming around with the full-sized adults. By the time they're out there doing their thing in the world, they're full-sized. And this one's full size is noticeably smaller. It also has, you can kind of see that sharp angle. You can kind of see that there is no orange in front of the eye. Maybe you can't, but that's the Neotropic Cormorant. Yeah, Brody, did you have a question?
It looks a little bit like the Neotropic Cormorant is a little bit duller. Its black is a little bit more duller than the double-crested.
And I would suspect in this case, that's because it was an immature bird. It was a younger bird that hadn't quite got its adult all black plumage, because I think it goes through a similar process. And the Brandts, I didn't talk about it, but the Brandts does the same thing, where the younger birds will be sort of brownish. Then they get fully black as they become adults. But yeah, that is a good point.
Thank you.
Here is an adult Neotropic Cormorant. And the other thing that they have when they are an adult is, besides having that sharp angle at the base of the beak, it becomes outlined in white. And that is a very useful clue if you happen to be lucky enough to be seeing an adult Neotropic Cormorant. And I think the one that's out there now at Devereaux is an adult. So you can spot that white border. So that's very helpful. Because double-crested, none of the other cormorants we have around here have that kind of white border. All right, so that's it. You're now experts on cormorants. So I have some quiz photos. I know you guys like quizzes. And Brody, you very much like quizzes, right? Yeah. Okay, so we have some quiz photos. We're gonna look at some cormorants, and you're going to apply your newfound cormorant knowledge. Here is a bunch of cormorants I saw out in San Pedro. They're on a bait dock or something floating out there. So if you saw these cormorants, check them out, see what you think. Brody, I see you have your hand up. What do you think they are?
I think there's one Brandt that is sort of behind all of them. It's like in the middle. You can sort of see it's bluish.
This one here?
Gular. Yeah, right there.
Uh-huh. And so what do you think about these other cormorants?
I think they're I'm not really sure.
That's okay. Cormorants actually are tough. Yeah, I mean, as I say, it's very easy to get to cormorant in your identification. But beyond that, the differences are pretty subtle, and it takes practice. It takes looking at a lot of cormorants. And again, ideally, you'd see them up close and kind of learn, okay, that's this and that's that. And then seeing them farther away, you can kind of see what the differences are when they're farther away.
Are
did
they?
You want to?
Yeah, I want to guess.
Okay,
Pelagic.
That's an excellent guess, but no, I think these are actually all Brandt's cormorants.
Oh
So
wow.
what has you fooled here is that this one is maybe showing the blue gular patch, but that's not something you see all the time. In fact, and this is August. I'm not sure if that's even during their breeding seasons, maybe kind of late in their breeding season. And their more typical appearance is just kind of like this, just a little bit of a faint yellow patch. But look at the proportions, right? They've got short tails, right? So again, if you're really focused in on the details of those proportions, they've got short tails. And the necks are not quite thick enough to be double-crested cormorant necks. Double-crested cormorants have really thick necks. And yet they're probably too thick to be pelagic cormorant necks. So these are subtle distinctions, but that's what's fun to look at. Okay, how about this one? Here's a bird in the Carpinteria Salt Marsh Nature Park. So I made a joke when I showed this photo to my wife. I was like, so this should be captioned, I think we're going to need a bigger log, which is a reference to Jaws, which if you haven't seen it, makes no sense at all. My jokes are not that funny typically, and this is a typical joke of mine in that sense. Yeah, Brody, I see you have your hand up.
I think it's a double-crested.
Right? Anyone else want to correct Brody? No, Tom's giving a thumbs up. Eve's giving a thumbs up. This is in fact a double-crested cormorant, a young one that's relatively light, right? It's got all that whitish stuff on it.
Yeah, that's what I looked at the 90-degree angle. I could tell it was a lot bigger.
Very good. Yeah. I didn't even talk about that, but the angle here and the orange in front of the eye, it's all there. The fact that it is in the Carpinteria Salt Marsh Nature Park, again, it's very rare to see anything other than a double-crested cormorant in there, right? There was, in fact, a pelagic cormorant that was hanging out in the salt marsh last year for a while, not sure when it was, recently, within the past year, which was fun and unusual. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was sick or injured or something and didn't want to be out there on the ocean. Anyway, that is a double-crested. And how about this one? So I'm making these trickier. Like I started with what I think of as easier ones, and I'm getting to harder ones as we go. So it's okay if they are challenging because they're supposed to be challenging. And in this one, the wing is obscuring the area of the neck kink, so you don't get that to help you. Tom, do you want to weigh in with a guess?
I'm thinking double-crested.
Okay. So I would call your attention to the area between the eye and the beak, that it's all dark, which is helpful. And also this kind of pale yellow air patch rather than an orange patch.
Yeah, that right there leads me to a Brandt again.
And in fact, it is a Brandt's cormorant. And also, again, subtle, but the tail is relatively short. It's kind of at an angle, so you can't really do my trick with the balance and the proportions so much, but that is a short Brandt's cormorant tail. All right. This is a bird I saw on the same trip that I saw that Brandt's cormorant. Okay, Brody, what do you think it is?
Roger.
I think it's a pelagic because you can just really see the skinny neck and beak, which just really make me think that it's a pelagic.
Yep, and no yellow patch. Yeah, pelagic cormorant all the way. All right. So back in August at the Andre Clark Bird Refuge, you've got 3 cormorants here to test your cormorant ID abilities on. And they're kind of far away, so you're not able to see a lot of detail, for which I apologize. But also, that's kind of what you've got sometimes with these cormorants. They're far away. So you've got a spotting scope that'll help you get a closer view. Yeah, Brody, what do you think?
I just want to, I'm probably wrong, but I think the one on the right is a Brandt's cormorant. Wait, not Brandt, I'm sorry. Double-crested Cormorant.
Okay.
The one on the left is Brandt, and I'm not really sure about the one in the middle. I want to say double-crested.
Well, you are 2/3 right, which is batting 667 if you were in the major league. So that's pretty good. What this is two double-crested cormorants on the right and a Neotropic Cormorant on the left. This is actually that adult Neotropic Cormorant that we've had around this year.
Okay.
And the thing that can kind of key you in is, first off, it's at the Andre Clark Bird Refuge, so it'd be really unlikely for either Pelagic or Brandt to even be there.
Oh.
Right? That's in cormorant terms, this is inland, right? They're not
Yeah, I
actually
took that
on
for
the
granted.
ocean. Yeah, they're not actually over the ocean or on a rocky cliff next to the ocean. You know, they're actually at this inland body of water. What's only a few hundred yards inland, but
Yeah.
that's enough to kind of exclude those other cormorants for the most part. So you're left with double-crested or pelagic, and what helps tell you that this is the pelagic are a few things. The easiest thing to see, though, is the size. And again, this, if you look at the body, size of the body, these two birds are about the same size. This one is noticeably smaller. And so that's, it's a small distinction, but learning to make those small distinctions is what will get you to a solid ID with these kinds of birds that look pretty similar. And you can't really see it, but it does have the acute angle and a little bit of the white border. It's not really visible in this. It has a relatively long tail proportional to its body, more so than the double-crested cormorants, which is a neotropic cormorant thing. All right, on we go. All right, here are two cormorants flying together off Carpinteria State Beach. And to make your life a little easier, I'm giving you a zoomed in version of each of them. And I really like this because it's a nice comparison. It lets you, they're side by side, they're in the same relative position. You can kind of really study those features and see what you've got. Okay, Brody, you're a very good sport, Brody, to keep trying these. I appreciate that.
Okay. I think the one on the right is a pelagic because it sort of has a shorter tail and its just head is like almost entirely black, and then the one on the left, I believe, is a double-crested because you can see its neck is really thick and it has like that I forgot like the little U shaped in it.
Yeah, the kink in the neck there.
Yes.
Yeah,
I forgot what it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you can call it whatever you want to call it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with you. That is definitely a double-crested cormorant. This one, so turns out this is not a pelagic, it's a Brandt's. But Brandt's versus pelagic is kind of the final frontier, for at least for me, of cormorant identification, and that is a species pair that I have a tough time with a lot of the time. If you happen to look at my eBird list, I have a lot of cormorant species on my eBird list.
I'm still finishing.
And when I do that, it's often because I'm not sure if it's a Brandt's or a pelagic. I can pretty quickly exclude double-crested from a bird like this, but then I'm like, is that skinny enough to be a pelagic, or is it thicker and that makes it a Brandt's? Yeah, this is actually a Brandt's cormorant. So I think the best advice on getting good at making that distinction is just go watch cormorants. Just go watch hundreds and hundreds of cormorants fly by, and you'll start to notice, and those differences will start to seem more obvious. All right, here's a flock of cormorants flying by up at the Guadalupe Dunes Preserve. Look at the mouth of the Santa Maria River. A really fabulous birding spot that I highly recommend. This is kind of fun too, because you kind of see a lot of different examples, right? Different individual birds that have sort of different looks. Anyone brave enough to give it a try? You've already established your bravery, Brody. That's fine. I don't mean to shame you into guessing. Okay, Brody, what do you think we have here?
I think that the one on the right, there's one that you can very distinctly see that's a Brandt's. I mean, no, not a Brandt's. Oh my gosh. Double-crested.
Absolutely. Yeah, this one up here
And
that's a
then-
little higher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, I agree. Even in the,
And then-
even at a small scale like this, even in the distance, you can still kind of see that orange and see the kink in the
Yeah.
neck and the big thick neck.
And I'm not sure if the other ones are either Brandt or Pelagic.
Yeah, I am basically with you on that. I think I entered these all as Brandts, but it would not shock me if there was a pelagic hiding in there that I'm missing, because some of these look awfully skinny. But I think,
Yeah.
if I were putting this eBird list in today, I would say those are all Brandt's Cormorants.
Okay.
Right, this is from the seal overlook at the Carpinteria Bluffs. Cormorants often perch on that pier there, the Casitas Pier. And if you get tired of looking at seals, you can turn your gaze on the cormorants on the pier and see if you can figure out what they are. Any guesses?
I don't think,
Think the lower one and lower left is a pelagic, really thin bill. And the upper right, I think is a Brandt, but I see the yellow up there, but the image is a little fuzzy. It's kind of,
More than a little fuzzy, yes. This is
yeah,
not a
I'm
great
just-
photo.
I'm a little in between a Brandt and a double-crested. Maybe that's just not a good enough image on the yellow around the eye there.
Yeah.
And you can't really see how long the tail,
True.
the tail feathers are. So it's either a Brandt or it's a double-crested, but I'm pretty sure the lower left, because of the thin bill and no color in the face, is a pelagic.
Okay, I like that. Brody, you have your hand up?
Yeah, I agree with the Pelagic. And in the top right, I honestly think it's Brandt because I think I can see what looks like a crest.
So I don't want to go back in the slides. I remind you, the two white tufts that I think we can see here is more the double-crested cormorant characteristic.
What did I say?
Yeah, I think you said Brandt's.
Oh,
Maybe
I
not.
probably did. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize,
Oh my
Brody. I could easily have gotten that
God.
wrong too. And it's all on video, so we're going to know. Someone watching this later
Yeah.
is going to say, man, John was really off base there correcting Brody when he was absolutely right.
And one in the middle is a snowy.
Yes. Yeah. Nice contrast there. And that was the bonus question, the snowy egret. And I think there's actually
Ooh.
another snowy egret in the back here behind the cormorant on the right.
Oh,
So I just started to notice, again, because I've been paying more attention to cormorants in anticipation of this class, there is often a pelagic cormorant perched out on that pier, like out towards the outer end of the pier that you can see from the seal overlook, or at least I've seen it like several times that I've been there, not just this photo. So that's something to look for the next time you're there. Maybe there's a pelagic cormorant out there. All right, so I told you they got harder. So this one I'm really challenging you. So this is August 2020 at Rincon Beach County Park.
how about pelagic with that tail?
I like the way you think.
yeah.
I think
same
this
here,
is,
Tom.
I think it actually is
Yeah,
a pelagic
pelagic.
cormorant. And in fact,
Yeah, that's what I thought.
this photo was taken about 2 seconds after this photo of the pelagic that I showed you earlier. This is this bird diving. So, all right, March of 2020 at Devereux Slough. Again, really, again, we get into these distant views and there's not a lot to work with there, right? There's not a lot of resolution. It can be challenging.
I think the tall guy second from the right is, I think he's double-crested because the orange around the eye looks in this fuzzy image like it's probably double-crested.
Mhm.
The guy to his left, I think, is a Brandt. The little white under the eye on the neck there, a little whiter. I don't know about the guy on the far right or the guy on the far left.
Oh, okay. And were you talking about this one when you said you thought
Yeah.
it was a Brandt?
I think so, but
I appreciate you taking making the effort again with so little to work with. That's that's very cool. Brody, I see you have your hand up. What do you think? Brody, did you want to make a guess, or you're muted still?
I'm sorry. I think the one to the left of the double-crested is actually a Neotropic because of the little white line right next to the beak. And then the other two, I'm sort of leaning towards Brandt.
Okay. Well, I will end the suspense and tell you that I believe these are all double-crested except for, as Brody correctly pointed out, a Neotropic. And one thing that I know, because I took the photo that you don't know, is that this isn't out on the ocean, right? This is actually a little bit inland, which again, around here at least, almost always means you're just going to have double-crested with the occasional, vagrant Neotropic as an option too. The Brandt's Cormorants, the Pelagic Cormorants, they're just not, you're not going to see them at the slough inland, from the beach there, or at least it's going to be very rare. And what I think is going on here is these are younger cormorants. They've got that lighter coloring, and it's just such a bad view in the angle of the head. You just can't see the orange on either of these birds. But yeah, and this one being smaller is in fact the Neotropic Cormorant. All right. The bird I just saw a couple weeks ago out at Ocean Beach Park. Andy, are you raising your hand down there?
I think it's a double-crested because it has that big kink in its neck.
Ah, excellent. Yeah. And Brody, would you agree with that, Brody? Still muted.
I'm gonna say that because I see there's the deserty background sort of going on. Even without seeing the bird, I'm gonna say that's a double-crested.
Well, I believe you are both correct. Yeah. And again, the details of the face with that orange between the eye and the beak, the relatively thick neck with the kink in it, the overall proportions, double-crested cormorant all the way. All right, September 2021 at Ocean Beach Park. So this is the same day. And I'll give you a hint that this is again, one of these, this is like the lagoon at Ocean Beach Park. This is not out on the ocean. This is inland. I mean, a few hundred yards inland. But there's like a big log there just north of the railroad tracks that the cormorants like to hang out on. Yeah, Brody, what do you think we have here?
So I think they're all double-crested, except that little one just like right standing on that log, just sort of right out in the water. I don't know really.
This one over here?
No, it's
This one?
like
This one?
over, down 2 times.
This one?
Yes.
Ah, well, I said at the time they were all double-crested, but now I'm looking at that one and wondering, so, I could easily have overlooked a Neotropic Cormorant, which if there had been one, there would have been very exciting because that would have been the first time they'd ever been seen that far north in our county. So I said these were all double-crested. What I thought I was going to trick you into saying that this one was a Neotropic because it looks a little smaller. But I think that's an illusion, right? The body is basically the same size if you compare it to the other. It's just perched a little lower down. So then I gave you a zoomed-in view to show that it's got the orange. But then you were cleverer than I thought, and then I was. So that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Double-crested cormorants.
Yeah, that one just seems a little bit different colored. It just seems a little bit different to me and smaller.
Yeah, and when they're really far away like this, so your view through binoculars or a spotting scope or through a telephoto lens on your photos, when you're dealing with this little detail, it's very easy to start interpreting, lots of different things can match up with that, right? And our
Yeah,
brains are very
yeah.
good at taking that information and kind of, putting a pattern on top of that and finding some
Yeah,
meaning
because
there.
if you could see its beak, then that would make it a whole lot easier. But
Yeah.
in this picture, you cannot see its beak. So
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
All right, I think this is the last slide. And here I'll give you a hint that I'm trying to trick you again. There is something tricky about this image.
That's a tough one.
Okay, Brody, what do you think?
I'm pretty confident saying they're pelagic because I think you're trying to trick us showing that ledge, which makes it look more like a desert. But I think that's actually like the ridge that goes down to the beach.
You are absolutely right about everything except I think these are Brandts. Yeah, and again, I was there that day and I had better views of these birds than you do. So
Yeah.
I believe they are Brandt's Cormorants, but again, the Brandt's pelagic distinction is a tricky one for me as well. So I could well be wrong.
No, I just looked. The necks just looked a little bit skinny for me on Brandt's.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, and you are absolutely right too. That the tricky thing is this is the sand dune. Basically, I'm looking over the dune, and these birds are in fact flying over the ocean.
Yeah.
So during the snowy plover breeding season, they fence off the beach, and this is as close as you can get to the ocean at Ocean Beach Park for those months. So there's like a platform there just beyond the railroad tracks where you can kind of set up your scope and look around and wish you could get down to the water's edge and see the cool birds down there. But now they have actually opened it up just in the last week or two. You can now go all the way to the beach there. So that's a lot of fun. It's a great place to bird that I highly recommend. And I think that is it for cormorants. All right, well, I'm not even sure that I want to talk about cormorants anymore myself. That's enough talking about cormorants for one meeting. But I certainly encourage you to go look for some cormorants, have fun checking them out, see if you can use your cormorant skills and improve upon them. And hopefully I'll see a lot of you a week from Saturday, or on Saturday if you're going on the pelagic trip with Island Packers. And let's see, anything else anyone wants to share before we go?
Yeah, it's really fun to watch the videos of those swimming underwater. They're just amazing.
Yeah, and I didn't talk about it, but I think one of the earliest memories I have of cormorants is in one of the old Jacques Cousteau documentaries showing how in, I want to say Japan or China or Taiwan, somewhere in the East, they fish with cormorants. Like they put a ring that's around the cormorant's neck with a line tied to it, and they let them swim down there and catch a fish. And the small fish they can swallow and eat, but the big fish get stuck because of the ring. So they pull them back up and they extract the fish from the bird's mouth, and that's how you can actually fish that way. It's like a traditional fishing technique to use cormorants. Anyway, I thought that was fun. Okay, well, thank you everybody, and I had a lot of fun. And if you have suggestions, thanks, Brian. If you have suggestions for what to talk about next time, I haven't even really given it any thought, but send me an email, and we'll have a fun meeting a month from now.
One quick question. At the beginning, you had the ovenbird. I think the only ovenbird I've ever seen was maybe in Trinidad or something. Does it happen here very often?
No, it is very much like, I'd have to check Paul Lehman's Birds of Santa Barbara County to know for sure, but I want to say it's like 1 or 2 records a year, 1 or 2 appearances.
I had no idea that the ovenbird showed up, in coastal California ever.
Yeah, it mostly doesn't. Like this is, again, this is the time of year when we get these weird eastern vagrants, where there's just a few individual birds that are supposed to fly south to the tropics and they fly west and end up in California. So yeah, Brody, do you have one more thing?
I think a fun thing to go over would be rarities that you might see going by around here.
Yeah. Well, again, this is a good time to be talking about that. Okay, I will give that some thought, and we will get together sometime, like probably the third Thursday in October. Watch the website for details, and I'll see you guys soon. Thanks.
Bye.